Hello, everybody. Good to see you all tonight. Good to have you here tonight, every one of you. And to our online people, welcome. Welcome tonight with us. So tonight, I'm going to put out a couple of different ideas. As we go along, please make a note if there's anything that you want to discuss with specifically, because I don't know what kind of areas I'm touching as we go along. Okay, the Lord's been speaking to me, challenges to press some limits, to go deeper, to go further, and so on. So, you know, for personal growth, there is always room. None of us have arrived ever. And there's always places in our lives that we can improve on or do more or experience growth. I don't know about you ladies, but I like challenges and I like change. Those are two things that I really, really love. I know some people don't like any of that at all, but I do. So when the Lord started saying to me about pushing some limits in my life, I thought, okay, Lord, I've been wanting to swim for a long time. So I always used to swim. And I haven't been at the gym for 22 years. And I went back to the gym and I'm swimming 40 lengths twice a week. I'm pressing those limits. And now that I'm getting better again, because obviously I haven't been there the last week or two, I'm back. But those kind of things, and it's brought me so much joy, so much early morning stress, and so much joy. You know, before Arthur died, must have been about, I think about 2 years before he died, I heard the Lord saying to me, be resilient in adversity. And I'm, okay, Lord, I'm resilient in adversity. When something comes against you or something happens in your life that you haven't planned, that's difficult to cope with, I felt the Lord saying to me, can you bounce back? And I'm, Lord, help me to be resilient in adversity. So when Arthur's diagnosis came, and we knew that it was serious, and it was very advanced, I felt the Lord again saying to me, this is what you need to be, resilient in adversity, as His children, as people who are filled with the Holy Spirit. We need to be able to bounce back when life happens, whatever life happens, just purely because we are indwelt with the living God, you know, and so we might be knocked down, but we're not knocked out. And there's a big difference. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be knocked out. So when you do hard things, it builds resilience in you. When you press your boundaries, it builds a resilience. It builds a strength inside you. We don't just crumble for the small stuff. So, you know, if I look at the generation around us, and a person can't really make a blanket statement, but I see a lot of softness in this generation. I've seen actually for many, many years, also in relationships, moms and kids, come, my little darling, let me do this for you. But my little darling is already like 8 or something and can't tie their shoelaces. So it's because mom keeps on doing it. So then there isn't a resilience that is built into the child to try hard things, try difficult things, you know. So I know also, if I go back to my parents, they were tough. They went through hard stuff. They went through the loss of everything when I was 5 and bounced back. When I look at their lives, I look at my grandpa and my granny. On my mom's side, they were tough people. My grandpa fought in the Second World War. If I look at my dad's dad, he lived to 94, but 10 years of that 94 years, he spent fighting in 2 world wars, the First World War and the Second World War. They were tough people. They were resilient. They had to bounce back, and they carried on with their lives, you know. They were people of character and things like that. And if you go even further back to like Alexander the Great and Caesar, Genghis Khan, these men, I mean, they were resilient. They knew what it was to sleep on the ground with their head on a rock, Whew, they were tough. But I just want to say something very profound, and that is that you can't extend the kingdom of God by being a couch potato. And I think what God is busy speaking to me about is comfort zones and couch potatoing. So, we all want to leave footprints in the sand of time, but we don't want to leave butt prints in the sand of time. So, remember that one. She left butt prints. Want to leave footprints. And that means we've got to be able to do hard things. Also, with parenting and building resilience in your children. So with my kids, if they said to me they're sick, then I used to say to them, okay, let's see if you've got a temperature. So if they had a temperature, they can stay home. If they don't have a temperature but they feel sick, they've got to go to school. Somewhere you've got to help them to be tough, even when they moan and groan, so that when they're older and they are at university and they're working, they're not going to say to their boss, please go home. I don't feel well. It's got to count. You've got to be really sick. You've got to be able to be tough. I see you all smiling. Your parents all did that to you, didn't they? Yeah, they did. But the Lord's really been challenging my paradigms very, very much about that. So I just want to shift the focus a little bit here onto metron. So our metron is our sphere of influence and authority. But my darling husband did the most incredible teachings on metrons. So I don't think any of you were around then. I don't know, Mariana might have been, not sure. But he had a way of just laying it out, the metron. The word meter comes from that, like 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters comes from the word metron. It's something that is used to measure, and it's something that we all have. We all have a metron, and we all have different metrons. Nobody in the world has got an identical metron, all because we made uniquely, fingerprints, all the things like that. Well, our metrons are our own too. So we're all different, but when we come together in unity like this, we shift the kingdom forward together. And I find that so beautiful. Imagine we're all the same. It would be boring. It would just be, I love it when we come together. And also sometimes when some ladies can't make it, I miss them because of what they bring. Their flavor that they bring into the group. That is so very, very special. So Matthew 11 verse 12, it says, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violence take it by force. So this scripture has got different interpretations. I don't want to go into those interpretations now, but I do want to say that I don't see the word couch potato in that scripture. It talks about violence. People are taking the kingdom violently by force, and the kingdom is moving forward violently by force. There is warfare. There is stuff that is involved. So I spoke a little bit about physical, stepping up to the physical challenges. I know a certain person there has been running herself to a standstill. I don't know about the rest of you. But there are also spiritual disciplines. So a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I started challenging myself on how much Bible I'm reading. So now I've upped it by ×4. And you know what? It's such a joy to me. I think, oh, yay! It's given me such a sense of satisfaction and a sense of joy to be able to just push those boundaries. So now I'm just keeping on pushing, just reading more and more and more, which is good. So I just want to take another direction here as well. While we're looking at metrons, so metrons are the sphere of influence and authority that we carry, but also it's got the connotation of boundaries with it. It's the place that I belong, I operate, and so on. All of these are studies on their own, but as you know, for Mighty Morsels, we've got limited time. I want to tell you something very interesting that I read. They built, I'm not sure where this was, I presume the States, they built a school. And they ran late with the building of the school. So when it was supposed to be opened, the school was ready, but the boundary wall wasn't built yet. But they decided to get the kids to come anyway, to actually start the school term. And the kids came. And there was a lot of concern now because there was a road right on the one side of the school, and there's a lot of concern about the kids' safety. So, of course, they posted people to keep an eye open. I don't believe there was any irresponsibility or anything surrounding this. But a very interesting observation happened during this time was that while there wasn't a fence up or a boundary wall up, the kids stayed by the school. They stayed by the buildings. The minute they put the walls up, the kids were playing all over the whole place. And they were saying boundaries give safety, actually. You know, a lot of people see boundaries as a very negative thing. I've got to put the stuff in place because I can't do this and I can't do that. And there is an aspect of that. But actually, boundaries are a hugely healthy thing if they are put in place properly and well. I want us to look a little bit about that, but I always found that story so very, very interesting. So I just want to say in living life, a life without any boundaries has got the potential to be completely chaotic. If you've got no boundaries, and I'm sure we can all think of people like that we've got to know over the years, that they don't have boundaries. The kids are in chaos, the household is in chaos, everything feels chaotic. But again, just with kids, I learned this quite early on. I'm grateful for it, that kids need structure. They need to be told, this is the time that we do this. This is the time that we do that. And it gives them security. It's like that wall that he's put up. Then they know where they stand. They will always push the boundaries. They will. So my kids one day, they were throwing the ball in the house. They know they're not allowed to do that. So I came into the lounge. I said to them, girls, you know you're not allowed to throw the ball in the house. Yes, Mum, we know. But can we roll the ball? Can we roll the ball in the house? So I said to them, okay, you can roll the ball in the house. When I look again, they've got the ball this high from the ground, throwing it to each other. They're just checking the boundaries, you know. That's how it works. But if I look at my own metron, I don't know about you ladies, but I water my own garden. I never water my neighbor's garden, ever. And with my own kids, I disciplined my own kids. So I didn't discipline the neighbor's kids, but I just want to say I was tempted to discipline the neighbor's kids. The kids come over to play. They don't have your rules and regulations in place. But so that's my metron. It's what belongs to me and what I'm doing. Some people have got boundaries like huge walls, and maybe sometimes it's necessary depending on what their lives are like. So I just want to look at a couple of different dimensions of boundaries. If we look at oh, thanks. I'm trying to think what kind of boundaries there are, but I can't think. Oh, that was cute. So, for instance, like with physical boundaries, if I can use the example of some people don't like hugs. I think we've been through this one before. They were like a fist bump or nothing, or a wave. But I have seen, and I find this quite difficult to see sometimes, to do with the hug story, in our culture in the church, we hug. It's what we do. So I've seen people actually running after other people to hug them who don't like hugs to prove a point, you know. It's not a good idea. But then for another physical boundary, if you're walking in your office and your boss pinches your bum, that is the violation of a boundary. Unless the boss is your husband and he's flirting with you, that's different. But there are different levels that where we have to speak up, we have to say something, put something in place, because it's not acceptable socially or otherwise. Then you get the dimension of time. So with boundaries, for instance, you can have a boss phoning you like after hours and asking you to do work. So maybe that's okay if you've got the arrangement or if it happens once. But when there's a violation of your own private time, that's also, it's not acceptable, you know. I've got a friend, and she said her boss used to phone her late afternoon. She would be at home with her kids, and he would scream so loud on the phone that her kids could hear it, and that her kids suffered trauma through that action. I mean, she resigned and stuff like that. But that's a boundary issue. A person needs to sort that one out. But you also find if a person violates boundaries like that, they're not interested in, there's a personality thing there that gives them the right to do what they want to, and then they don't want to be cooperative and put that boundary in place, Emotional boundaries, sometimes, say for instance, there's an example of, say, extreme anger, then a person would need to step away or make a plan or put a boundary, however it works in that situation. I've got a very sad story. And I actually find the story hard to tell, but I'm going to tell it because it's a true story, and a very powerful illustration. So we've got friends in the ministry, and he was a young pastor at the time, and a woman in his congregation came to him and said to him that that her husband is abusing her and violently abusing her. What must she do? Because she wants to leave. So he hauled out the Bible and said to her, "You've got to submit to your husband, and you can't think of leaving," and spoke to her along those lines. So she'd gone to him for advice, and she felt she needed to take his advice. So she went back to him, and he murdered her. And this pastor said, and it was early on in the ministry, I think it nearly derailed him. And he had to live with that for the rest of his life. Not understanding that, that's a whole other topic completely. But physical abuse like that, verbal abuse, all those kind of things are not okay. They are not okay. Then we've got the financial one. This is the last one on this little list here. With the financial structures and stuff like that, if you've got somebody who is continually borrowing, they're going over that boundary every time, somewhere you need to put a thing in and say, "Sorry, guys, it doesn't work like that," This, of course, all of these examples are subject to, not all circumstances are the same. There are different influences pulling within different dynamics, So a person just needs a lot of wisdom. So if I go back about 20 years in my own life, but more than 20 years in my own life, I've got 2 girls, sorry. So I want to give you 2 examples. My oldest one was very responsible with money, and just a responsible child. So I knew that if I gave her money, I was empowering her. She was a saver. She's just savvy with money all her life. So whenever I gave to her, it gave me so much joy because I knew that it was empowering her. And in fact, she saved at such a mighty rate on a tiny little beginning salary to do another degree that she paid for more than half of her varsity fees from her savings. It's that kind of kid. My other one was a drug addict. And so I always knew if I'm going to give her money, I'm not empowering her, I'm enabling her. 2 words, empower, enable, 2 completely different things. So I knew what she's going to do with that money, you know. So if you've got somebody with an addiction or something like that, but you want to get something for them, it was better for me to take her to the shop and say to her, what would you like? And then I'd pay for it. And I would hope she wouldn't sell it. I don't think she did though, but addicts do. So there's also those kind of boundaries of empowering and enabling. So sometimes people feel sorry for people and then they give them money, but they're not helping them. That money is setting them back. So the conclusion to all that stuff is that we really need wisdom from God as His children, as His people. You know, I've been before in situations where people were begging, and I have felt the Lord clearly say to me, give that person that amount. And I've done it in obedience to God. But a person can't give to everybody because that's just how life works. But we need to hear His voice, you know. I want to talk a tiny little bit about codependency. Don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I'm going to read here from my notes. It's a dysfunctional relationship dynamic where one person, often described as the giver, sacrifices their own needs and well-being to excessively care for another person, the taker, who may be struggling with issues of addiction and so on. This is usually quite an extreme degree. So I used to have a friend like that. She needed to be needed. So she would get herself into situations and then she would help in situations, but it wouldn't be real help because it was enabling that person with bad behavior. When they didn't want to accept her advice, she would become resentful, and she ended up being a very, very resentful person. Although she was a big helper, but you could help with savvy. Does this make sense to you ladies? So with codependency, it's supporting or allowing harmful behaviors. The thing of being needed, the thing of I can't say no, the thing of I'm neglecting myself, the thing of I've got to fix the situation, and then ultimately being resentful. So those are all boundary issues at some level that need help, they need input, they need healing, and so on. I didn't say we're going to have a fun word tonight. Okay, so I want to close now just with a last little thought. I don't often watch whole podcasts because some podcasts, the one I watched was over 3 hours. I'm like, Mia, it's like an investment of my life. It's like a pension policy listening to this podcast. Anyway, but what I do quite enjoy watching is like short content where they take a piece of a podcast, they just take the highlight and you can gain a lot of info from it, you know. Although I'm just saying there's a lot of noise out there on social media. Hey guys, there's a lot of noise out there. Even though sometimes there's good stuff, it's noisy. But anyway, I was watching this podcast of a very interesting lady who's not a Christian. And she started off, was so interesting. She started off by saying that she's an introvert. And because she's an introvert, what she finds is that spending time with a lot of people makes her absolutely exhausted. So she has to put boundaries in place, like to protect herself, because she doesn't want to get too exhausted, okay? And then she spoke and spoke and spoke, and then she got to the end, and she said, but I just want to end off by saying that our most fulfilling moments that we can experience as people is spending time with other people. Oh. She completely 100% contradicted herself from the beginning to the end. So I'd already started preparing this when I heard that, and I thought, well, that is just such an interesting point, you know, because I think what can happen is with this whole thing of boundaries, there's got to be wisdom, because if you start filtering out everything that you don't like or is uncomfortable out of your life, you will leave footprints, because you are filtering out everything uncomfortable. So if I think back to the beginning of the ministry, I was 25 years old, and I didn't know much about, I knew nothing about, I knew little about the ministry because I'd been in the church since I was 17. So I knew a bit, I'd seen Arthur and stuff. But, you know, until you live the thing, you don't really know. So just a small example. So when you're a person, you have funerals in your life. When you're a pastor, you have lots of funerals in your life. I don't even know how many funerals we had over the years. Many, in 50 years, many. And I remember Arthur saying to me, and I don't know if I'd been to a funeral, possibly not, before I got married. I can't remember actually ever being to one. But he said to me, you need to go over to the person and you need to tell her, because it was her husband that had died, and you need to tell her how sorry you are that she's lost her husband. I'm like, oh, you know, I never knew that I had to do that. So I went and did it, and I tried to not cry. I mean, she was grief-stricken. It was, they were in love, you know, and it was hard, and it showed, you know. And I think to myself, if I had have said as a pastor's wife, well, I'm not going to go to funerals. I might go to some weddings. Some weddings, they fight. Some weddings, they fight the whole thing. All the way to the altar, there's fighting. This one wants that. No, the mother wants that. No, the bride wants that. And it's just one big fight. Well, I don't want to go to those weddings. I don't want to do this. You know, how would I have been shaped to cope in the ministry as the years rolled by? Because there were many years that came after that. I needed to be able to do those hard things. And we all need to be able at time to rise to the occasion, to put the tears back inside and to love the person that lost, you know. So just an example that I thought of. So I think that we can defeat our Christianity if we're not careful by boundaries, by putting so much distance that we are not effective like God wants to use us. Maybe you've been through something and you can go to that person and you can just drop that gem for them and make all the difference. You want to be able to do that. But if you put up that, you know, so I just think as God's people, we must be open to hearing from Him and being willing to step out the comfort zone, to step off the couch potato position, and to do hard things, whether it's like I have gone back to the gym. I know that you're not all going to go back to the gym. I'm well aware, but you can challenge yourself in other ways to say, Lord, help me, but bring on the challenges. Grow me so that you can use me. Grow me so that I can be effective. Grow me so that I can touch people's lives and love them, you know. So in conclusion, I want to say, clear boundaries are important. There are times that we have to put boundaries in place, but don't end up isolating yourself. in the process. Hard things are important for personal growth. I just want to mention about resistance training. Does anybody know what resistance training is? Yeah? Okay, well, this is a fabulous opportunity to tell you. Resistance is exactly what it says it is, resistance. It's hard. So it starts off by picking up 2 kilograms. And this is Ash. Oh, Mom, 2 kilograms. You know, I was like, oh, you know. Anyway, 2 kilograms, then becomes 4 kilograms, then becomes 5 kilograms, then becomes wherever you want to take it. And all the time that you're doing it, resistance training is strength training. And that's what the hard things are all about. It's picking up those things and pulling against the weakness and strengthening. And you'll be surprised how quickly you can get strong. You'll be surprised how you can turn the tide on your health, on your spiritual health, on your prayer life, on your reading the Bible life, on praying in tongues. All these things that we've been given, worship. Do it more. Press a boundary. Instead of 10 minutes, do 15. Do 15. You're going to end up doing long, and it's going to bless you. It's going to turn you around, change your whole life. And then I want to say, challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. So that this time next year, we're not going to look back on the something of July. 10th? Is it 10 today? 10th of July, 2026, look back and say, I didn't do a thing. I'm still the same person. Or you can say, in a year's time, I cannot believe what I've got, what I've accomplished and what I've done. And there's so many places that we can challenge ourselves, eh? So many beautiful places. So we are going to chat now about what is the last time you did a hard thing. So I don't want to hear 2002, okay? So most recent. and just discuss this whole concept. So thank you to our online people for joining us. May you be blessed and process well. Thank you.